Good evening, family, and welcome to our See Yourself Running, the realities of running as a Black candidate. My name is Daryl Gibson, and I'm the Wisconsin State Director for Run for Something. Thanks for being here tonight. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the weight, sadness, and righteous rage we all feel about the murder of our brother, Tyree Nichols. The past few days have been hard for all of us, but I want to let you know how grateful I am to be with you all tonight. This is a space just for us. This space is not just one of activation, but for aspiration and solidarity. Take a moment, exhale, and know that we're all here together. Look, we know that our systems are broken beyond repair, but we can pick our own tools to build a better tomorrow. Being here tonight is just one of the ways we can start moving toward creating a more just society. Each of us can say enough and take on power structures at all levels that deny our humanity and instead position ourselves in places of decision-making to prioritize our communities and create policies that help instead of harm. Out of the past week of despair, we can read the stories of hope. Thank you for being with me tonight. At Run for Something, I recruit, support, and help maintain our Black candidates to run strong grassroots campaigns. I know that there are many amazing future candidates here on this call, and I can't wait to work with y'all and y'all work with my colleagues. In full sincerity, I look forward to it. And I'm honored to be your host and co-moderator for tonight's event. A few housekeeping rules before we get into everything. Please introduce yourself in the chat box. Make sure your settings are set to all participants and attendees, and share your name, where you're from, and what brought you to this call tonight. Feel free to use the chat box to comment on the programs or interact with other attendees. This is a great chance to get to know each other and build community. After some initial discussion with our panelists, we will open up the floor for questions. So please put any questions you have in the panel in the Q&A box. We'll put questions there, not the chat box. It's right on the bottom row of Zoom, should be on the right-hand side, and it says Q&A. Again, if you're looking to put your questions during that open question section, put them there. It's easier for us to catch and answer for the panelists. For this webinar, we're using the Zoom live transcription service. If you would like to view live captions on your screen, please click the More menu in the lower right-hand corner and select Show Subtitle. Later during the call, we will launch a poll so we'll like for you to take the next step in working with Run for Something. You'll be able to opt in or opt out. With the housekeeping covered, let's get into tonight's program. Black History Month 2023 is special for so many reasons. Our world has shifted over the past few years to one that has got used to hearing the terms of intersectionality, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and mainstream topics have become mainstream topics for conversation. Our movements for social justice and liberation are taking a forefront in politics, and our voices are more powerful than ever. But there is still a universal truth that being Black and running for office will present hurdles to you, challenges, and opportunities that require attention and support from political infrastructures and institutions that go beyond the basics. This is not a new issue. Black candidates are often tasked with the complicated nuance of running while Black. Myself ran back at the age of 24 in 2016 here in the great state of Wisconsin. The idea of being a young Black man on the ballot was something that I was very proud of, but also I was honestly scared as hell. Being a predominantly white state and running for state assembly is a big challenge and a big hurdle, but it was something my community needed. Folks I grew up in my neighborhood needed to see me. And to this day, I'm proud. Although I was not victorious, I wish organizations like Run for Something was around when I ran. In the 5 years Run for Something has been supporting young progressive candidates around the nation, we have heard from hundreds of Black candidates about their experiences. Will my neighbors answer the door, call the police when I'm canvassing? not getting the support we need from state or local parties, having to address systematic and persistent racism as a potential elected official while living under the constraints of those same racist institutions. If we won't address the issues for our community head on, then when will we? Run for Something has set out to challenge ourselves to do better and be better, and show up for all dynamic Black candidates and political candidates in actions and in words. It's not enough to say run for office. Go ahead. We're saying run for office and we got you. Tonight's call is a place for us to come together as a political community invested in Black candidates from all walks of life to provide honest advice, answer questions, and create a community of support that you need when you're stepping up to run for office. Before I jump into introductions of our panelists, I want to take a moment to review the Run for Something and encourage all young people of diverse progressive backgrounds to run for office and state office. More specifically, here at Run for Something, we endorse candidates of diverse and progressive backgrounds who are under the age of 40, running for the first, second, or third time, and running for down ballot offices, which includes city council, mayor, county commission, the state legislature, school board, county clerk, sheriff, or district attorney. Since Run for Something started in 2017, we've had over 2,500 young people run for office and who wanted to run for office. We've endorsed over 2,500 candidates across all 50 states, and including DC, and we won over 1,000 elections and elected over 800 candidates across 48 states. Since 2020, over 50% of our candidates identify as women or non-binary, over 50% identify as BIPOC, and over 25% identify as LGBTQIA+ individuals. To date, we have endorsed over 580 Black candidates, and over 220 of them have ran and won their races. And we're looking to endorse many more for years to come. We provide endorsed candidates with coaching, resources, and training, and we connect candidates with partners who can help their campaigns. RFS alum also support current candidates, and our alumni network supports connections that will help them govern successfully over and over again. Young, diverse, and excited progressives running strong grassroots campaigns will increase immediate turnout and help build political power for underrepresented groups while changing the conversation about who is electable in this country. At Run for Something, we focus on local, county, and state offices because these elected leaders directly influence people's everyday lives. We hope this panel helps you as you consider running in your community. With all that being said, let's introduce our panel of Run for Something candidates tonight. But first, I am thrilled to start the conversation by introducing my partner moderator, Kevin Olusadniwe, the National Political and Organizing Director of the Collective PAC, an organization working to fix the challenge of underrepresentation of Black communities in elected seats of power. Kevin is an experienced operative who has worked on numerous campaigns on the municipal, county, state, and federal level. Our panelists, Councilman Obi Ezeadi is a Westminster City Council member in Colorado. He's a first-generation American and the son of Nigerian immigrants who lived experiences as survivor of childhood poverty, police brutality, and racial discrimination. Obi's goal is to revive the city council with diversity of thoughts, fresh perspectives, and compassionate leadership to reduce crime, increase property values, and more productive classrooms. Next up, we have Representative Izzy Smith-Waddell. Prior to his election to the P8 legislature, he was the president of the Lancaster City Council. Representative Izzy has fought for grassroots campaigns such as teachers, Black Lives Matter, and for public funding. Lastly, we have school member Millicent Rogers. Millicent Rogers, I apologize. She is a product of Durham Public Schools and is now a member of the school board. She redirected her advocacy for a youth focus after the birth of her son, working with the school's local PTA unit. As a working class single mother, she has worked to ensure all families in Durham have their experience represented at the table. She has previously served as the local PTA president and vice president. And now I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Darryl. Good evening, everyone. I'm so honored to be moderating this panel with such an esteemed group of talented young folks who are running for office. Let me start right away by asking each of you the question I ask every endorsed candidate that I have ever met with before, including Izzy, who was one of our endorsed candidates in the last cycle. So I'll start with you, Rep. What made you decide to run for office? What is your why?
That's I love that question in part because I feel like every couple of months the answer gets different. I think it develops a little bit, and the reason I'll say that is because I feel like I am different in the work that you do. You spend 3 months, 6 months, a year in a particular job or in a particular campaign, and there's something that I think changes in you. But for me, I think the thing that has remained consistent is seeing on the ground where my friends and neighbors deserve better and saying, okay, how can we get from here to a place where we can move the levers to get the better that they and we all deserve? So I have neighbors to the left and right of my house who might very well be evicted in the next couple of months. And I know that they can't afford the home prices in my city and in my state legislative district. And we need to do something to fix that for them. I have good friends, who are languishing in pretrial detention. That is to say, they are in cages despite the fact that they've never been convicted of a crime. And we need to do something to get them out because we know that pretrial detention only increases recidivism for most people. And the one that really gets me, at the intersection of two of the most important issues to me, climate and housing, there's an affordable housing development, Franklin Terrace, about 6 blocks from my house. Last fall, there was a big rainstorm and the Conestoga River flooded its banks until it was up to the bottom of people's windows and they had water trickling in their windows. The crises that we face, from fascism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, the climate crisis, what have you, they affect Black and brown people and working class people first, and they affect us in a way that's deadliest. And I think we really have two options moving forward. We can either be the canaries in the coal mine. We can always be the persons who get hit first and worst, or we can be the vanguard of building the home and community that we deserve. And so I like to think of myself as having chosen the latter.
Let me go to you, Madam School Member Rogers. You are in charge of young kids' future, or at least shaping their future. What made you decide to run for school board? Why was this something that you felt like you had to do?
Thank you. I ran for school board. First, I thought it was for my son, right? Because Black and brown students do not have the same access and don't see their parents in elected office and speaking up and advocating for them. The people who are making decisions for the population of students that we serve, which is 76% Black and brown students, did not look like us and did not have the same experience that my son and myself had as a single parent household, working class family. Izzy made it plain. The things that came up when I had conversation in community were that there are families and students who are experiencing homelessness. There are families, my father was one of them, that were incarcerated, and our students have to learn through those experiences. And our schools have to be prepared to respond to those experiences. Right now, we call them ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that we need school board leaders and district administration ready to respond to. So I ran because we weren't represented. We weren't represented in the pandemic when they talked about reopening schools. Why are we the first ones going back? Because our families have to go to work. I ran because the people who are making decisions said publicly, it's important for us to reopen this space, but I am not comfortable sending my kids back and have the privilege to live in a space where I don't have to send my kids back, but the rest of y'all got to go. That's why I chose to run, because so many families around me that look like me, that share those same experiences, deserve to have a representative at the table to say, hold on, wait a minute, that's not exactly what we need. Let us speak for ourselves.
That's awesome. Councilman, let me turn to you. What is your why? What made you decide to run for office, and why specifically did you decide on running for council?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I hope y'all can hear me very well. The reason why I ran for council is really because I felt that we needed more problem solvers who lead heart first. We needed more people with lived experience. We needed people who can deliver dignity to our community, to our neighbors. Dignity is not a word you hear very often in government, but it's a necessity nonetheless, right? That was what was missing. And that's across all races, all income levels, all sexualities, all people that are an other. You know, I felt that these voices were not being heard. And it was the community for me where I grew up, I grew up fairly poor, and I was brutalized by police at 10 years old, right? But it was my community that protected me and helped me heal, and get to a better place where I then unlocked my potential to understand government and history and society and why everything was so broken, right? So when I grew up and moved to this area where I'm at now in Westminster, Colorado, I just saw the intersectionality of patriarchy and systemic racism, right? And I saw that my experiences in my life, I could add value to those decisions and how they get made so that we can all have more dignity.
Great. Let me ask the second question, and we're going to kind of turn to each individual panelist for some of these questions. I'll start with the school board member in North Carolina. I'm curious, what are the top 3 challenges that you see for young Black progressives that are running for office? And specifically, how did you address those challenges as you were thinking about running, as you were going through the process of running?
The top 3 for me were fundraising. Can I earn enough? Scrutiny. I will be scrutinized for my attire and presentation, for the level of education that I have, for being a single parent, for living in an apartment and not being a homeowner, for all the things. And would I get enough community support? In a lot of spaces, I'm not Black enough. I'm definitely not white enough. And is the community going to get behind me? Does my message resonate with them? Am I of the community enough that I am going to get elected? Nobody goes in and decides that they're going to run and lose. And so I had to let go of the fact that I might not win. And so that took off some of the level of, is the community going to respect me or accept me and all those things? Because win or lose, there was a message to be told from beginning of the campaign season to the end of the campaign season. And we have got to tell this story. The time is now. We have to tell this story, regardless of whether we win or lose. If I run, the money will come. And that means that I have to put it in bite-sized chunks. And so I did fundraisers on Fridays where I asked people to skip their cup of coffee and donate $5 to the campaign, because it needs to be something that's affordable and attainable to the regular, everyday working class person, because this is our campaign and not just mine. And if they invest in it, then they have buy-in, and we're all in this together. The scrutiny, I never got used to. It's like going to Thanksgiving dinner with your family and your aunt's there, and it's like, are you married yet? Did you have kids? Did you get your master's? Did you do this? It's gonna happen. You learn what they ask for, what they want, and you do your best. I had to decide that I was going to present my best self, and I would encourage everybody running for office to present your best self. Wear comfortable shoes when you're door knocking. Make sure that you're comfortable when you show up for a panel. You have on comfortable clothes and not something you're constantly adjusting. Don't worry about so much what it looks like, so long as you're comfortable in your skin. And so those were the things that helped get me through those top three things: fundraising, the scrutiny, and is the community going to get behind this message?
I love that. Thanksgiving dinner with the scrutiny. You just hoping that the tryptophan hits everybody so they go to sleep and they stop asking you all them dang questions. That's awesome. Councilman, let me turn to you if I can. Before you ran for office, I'm wondering, what was your relationship as a general matter in your district with the Black community, and what role did you see them playing in your council race?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I spoke with the Black community. I spoke with the Latino community, the LGBTQ plus community, because these are folks that are an other. And my biggest fear was, will I be accepted, right? There's the imposter syndrome of, am I even worthy to be here? Will people see me as worthy to be running? Because before you run, you kind of put this whole thing on a pedestal, right? Of, well, you have to be super special, you know, to do something like running for office. But in reality, and what I learned from these conversations was that actually there's a certain pride and beauty, right, of being Black. You know, Black joy and Black love are revolutionary, right? And it's not something you should be afraid of expressing or of just being alive, right? Just walking door to door, knocking door to door. That's not something that should be on your mind, because actually the Black experience of trauma and resilience in America is representative of everyone's deepest struggles, right? So when I made that connection that actually being or looking how I look, because it's all just a physical thing that we make up, right? Race is a human construct, but that history that gets tied to the color of my skin is actually representative of a bigger structure, a deeper struggle that everyone can relate to. So all I have to do when I make those phone calls or when I hit those doors is connect with people, learn their stories, and they will connect with mine because my story is their story. So that was the result of those conversations, and that helped me a lot to get in the race.
Great advice. Connect with people and they will connect to your story, not the other way around. That's so great. Rep, let me turn to you if I can. Oftentimes, people running for office are looking to be the solution to a problem. There is a thing that is happening in the district, in the place that you live, and there is a vacuum of leadership around that particular issue, and you step up, you run for office to be that solution to the problem. Tell me, as you were sort of thinking about your run, you talked a little bit about this in your intro, but how did that play out for you in real time as you were making the decision to run? How did that play out on the campaign trail?
So I think one of the things that really set the campaign that we ran apart is that we got checked kind of out of that we are the solution to your problem space actually really early. Sitting down, there's a woman, her name is Louise Williams. She's actually the first Black woman magisterial district judge in Pennsylvania, and she's one of my old heads. And she sat down with me and my campaign team and said to me, our neighborhood doesn't need a savior. And that really resonated with me. And so we were able to make a shift both, in my personal philosophy and in narrative, to less of a place of feeling like we are going to step up to solve a problem, but really grounding ourselves in the communities that make up the district, in the neighborhoods that make up the district, and standing side by side with them as a part of a strategy to address the problem. I'm going to flip it back a ways. My mom was born in 1948 in Washington, D.C. So, she grew up through part of the civil rights movement. And so a lesson she was always eager to impart to me before she passed was that there's levels and there's strategies and there's positions to this. You might be the inside guy, but just because you are inside does not mean you get to talk down to or think you're better than the person applying pressure on the outside. They're actually making it possible for you to pull certain levers, and you are creating space for them to push harder. And so you're recognizing that you are in a strategic tension, in a strategic relationship, even with those folks who you may feel, and this will happen, I don't care how movement grounded you are, how much of an organizer you are, you're going to get elected, somebody's going to come at your neck, and it's going to be tough, even if you were just right there. Remembering that you are actually not the solution to anybody's problem, but that you can build relationships to achieve those solutions with them is going to get you a whole lot farther. And I think people are going to, as the councilman said, I think people are going to resonate with that on a more instinctive level. People don't want to feel, we've left the time when people want to feel that their elected officials are handing something down to them from on high. They want people who are going to stand shoulder to shoulder with them.
That's great. I think meeting people where they're at is a really, really important thing. And the best elected officials are the ones that know how to do that and can do it naturally. So I agree with you there 100%. Let me go to you, school board member, and ask you, we're going to do some real talk now. One of the reasons I love I do and not doing what y'all do is because I value balance in my life. I like to go to the grocery store and not have people ask me questions. I like to be out and about in the park and not have people ask me questions. And y'all don't get a chance to do that at all. Anywhere you go, everywhere you are the elected official first before you are who you are. So I got to ask you, how do you keep balance in the work that you do? How do you maintain balance over the course of the campaign cycle? And if you didn't do it well, tell us what you would do differently knowing what you know now.
Okay. I agreed to do this panel before I quit my job. But seriously, but I learned a lot about the work-life balance over the course of the campaign. I did not quit my job to take on this new role. But I do have a new gig coming up, and I'm really excited about it, that has a better work-life balance. But I had the opportunity in the role that I was in to flex my time, work weekends and the evenings to make up for the times that I missed work during the campaign cycle. And the same thing once I was sworn in last July. Really, I have a village that supports my advocacy, that supports the work that's happening. And I went to my village. Actually, my village came to me and said, Millicent, we need you to run for school board. And I said, well, if I'm running, you're coming with me. So we all go together. That means Sunshine, that's my son, I call him Sunshine. Sunshine, we're going to all the things at your school and all the neighboring schools. And we're going together. That's how we spent time together. That means, Auntie, hey, I need you to come and I need you to stand at this poll and talk to these people who are coming to vote. That got my mom out. I have a twin sister who actually helped me double in some spaces, and showed up and was able to go to bat for me when things overlapped. But there were times when my campaign manager said, okay, did you do your call time? When you do your call time, you need to take an hour, 2 hours for yourself, because you've done all the things, you've shown up in all the places. The other thing that I learned from Run for Something with my mentor is that I need to delegate and give other people the tasks to do that have to be done that I cannot do. Literally, as the candidate, as the elected official, you can't do all the things. And those things that don't require you, you don't do those things. You hand them off to somebody else. And when I started handing things off, I found the right balance. So, and I took my village with me. They showed up everywhere, talked to everybody.
All right, so here we go. Here's the 3 things for the people taking notes. Make sure that you have a village that supports you. Everybody should have one of those. Make sure that you're ready to delegate those things that don't belong to you and belong to somebody else. And number 3, get you a doppelganger or a twin that can double for you somewhere so you can be somewhere else and not be everywhere at all times. It's a super important thing to do. But in all seriousness, though, work-life balance is a real challenge that all candidates have, particularly Black candidates, right? And we want to make sure that y'all are thinking about that as you're thinking about running for office, for sure. Councilman, second to last question, I'm kind of to you. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Let's just go right at the 800-pound gorilla in the room, fundraising. Everybody wants to know how to do it well. Everybody wants to know what the right approach is to it. Everybody wants to know why they shouldn't be afraid of it. So I'm going to ask you some questions about this. The first is, how did you approach fundraising in your race for council? And secondly, what did you guys use the resources that you raised the money to do? How did you spend the money that you raised?
I think it's a great question. It's the biggest question that any candidate has. And for me, being Black, being not plugged into the political system when I first ran, it's difficult. It's the way I approached it was half luck, really, because I did a lot of stuff, random things that, trial and error. I would use social media in particular ways to see if I can raise money that way, right? Most of it failed. One way hit, and that was through Instagram. So I built up an Instagram following and this is atypical, particularly in Colorado, so what I did was for 5 months or so, I built up my Instagram account. Really, I didn't say I'm running for anything. I just made connections with people, showed my value system to people. They trust, you build trust that way. And once you get the trust, that's when I started saying in DMs, right? One-on-one, hey, I'm running for city council. Can you help out? And every single person I would ask did, because they already knew me, they trusted me, they trusted what I believe in. That was one of the key ways that we raise money. So as you all know, you dial for dollars. That, it seems stupid. It seems like it's a waste of time. And you'll be told, just sit there and call this list. Just keep calling. It works. You just have to do the work. And as Millicent knows, as Izzy knows, if you outwork your opponent, you will win. There's no magic to it. There's no like specific, like special recipe that you have to learn from someone. Outwork the other person in all ways. Knock more doors, call more people, you will win. So I just did a lot of phone calls. So a lot of my money came from phone calls, from online. We sent mailers to raise money as well. That works sometimes depending on your target list. You know, you have to make the right target list for that so you don't waste money there. But there are lots of those. So basically approach it from all angles, but just do a lot more than the other person and you'll raise money. And we ended up raising the most money in the city's history. And we had the most contributions in the city's history just by outworking. So that would be my key advice here.
All right, show of hands for all of our panelists. How many of y'all love call time? Like can't wait to jump on the phone and make calls to ask people for money?
The one thing I did that people were surprised about is the business card that I created. I put my QR code that went straight to my ActBlue. It didn't go to my website. Don't talk, you know, you can go find my website. You'll Google my name, you'll find me. But the QR code went straight to the ActBlue. So if somebody saw my business card, they knew how to donate.
So I asked the question about whether or not people love call time because I think it's a really important thing that you all should know when you're thinking about running for office. It's a dirty little secret. Doesn't matter if you're running for local office or you're running for president of the United States. Everybody hates call time. Nobody likes it. I don't know a single person that I've ever worked with at any level that can say the thing that they love doing the most is sitting in an office for 5 or 6 hours at a time and picking up the phone and calling sometimes strangers and asking them for money. It's just not a natural thing for people to like. But I think the councilman said something that I want to repeat here before I move on, which is really important, which is it just has to be done. So it can't be about whether or not you like it or whether you enjoy it or whether or not you think it's fruitful. His point is so important, which is you just have to put the time in making the phone calls. And if you sow the seeds, you will reap the fruit. But the truth of it is, if you do not sow those seeds, there's not going to be no money tree that you get planted in the back of your house. The Brinks truck is not going to show up to pay for your mail. The way this works is you put time and effort in and you will get what you put into it. There's no secret to it. There's no magic. You just got to put the time in. So thank you, Councilman, for that. I think that's super important. Final question for me before I turn it back over to Daryl. I'm going to ask all of you to answer, but I'm going to start with you, Rep. Here's a question. What piece of advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now about running campaigns versus when you started? Is there one thing that you would give yourself advice about that you, like, God, if I knew this before I got into this, this would have been a whole lot easier?
Yeah, that's easy. Develop a good filter, and you're going to do that with people, with your kitchen cabinet, with people that are close to you. Learn to tell the signal from the noise early, or to bring folks in around you who can tell you about what's signal and what's noise. So we won, we won with 70% of the vote in both the primary and the general election, but it did not seem like that from the get. And my partner can tell you, my friends can tell you, like every time I would get my opponent's mailer, I would be like, oh no, this is, man, I can't believe they said that, or they did this, or they're there, oh, I gotta go there. And you really have to focus on your plan and run the race that you plan to run. Don't spend election season, trying to campaign reactive to your opponent. You're here because you and your folks have a race that you intend to run. And so you need to figure out what voices you're going to let speak into your ear early, and then get them to help you box out some of the other nonsense. But, and I don't want anybody to mistake this, stay humble. The right voices to speak into your ear will also check you. They will also say, no, sit your butt back down, do call time. No, get out there, knock the doors. No, don't say that. No, sometimes you're gonna want to react to something, and you got to have somebody who's just gonna be like, nah, you're not on social media right now. Nope. Those people in your life are critical. So, work on that early is the advice I'd give myself.
Get you some real ones around you who are going to tell you exactly what you need to hear, not the stuff you want to hear. Absolutely. That's super, super important. Let me go to you, school member. One piece of advice that you would give yourself that you did not have beforehand, and you know now, and you're like, man, if somebody had told me this could have changed the game.
Make time to process. Make time to process. There are things that are going to happen, and you have to make time to process. Candidates will say negative things and run negative smear ads, and you don't need to be in front of people when you're processing. Go home, have your safe space, go in your prayer room, go to your mama's house, find a safe space to go and process your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your whatever it is that you need to process. Do it. Make sure it's thorough and leave it in that room or in the box or wherever and move on to the next thing.
That is great advice. I think the most important thing that a candidate can do in this process is to be in a place where the best version of you shows up every single day. And so you're right. You got to just take the time to figure out how you take your lumps and then show up the next day to be the best version of you, because that's what the people who are ultimately going to be your constituents are. Great, great advice. Councilman, let me go to you. One piece of advice that you know now, having gone through this process, that if somebody told you beforehand would have changed the game for you?
There are so many. I'll pick one. This one I wish I knew. So it's the saying that fear is optional, but danger is real. Okay, that means a lot of things. You can unpack it in many different ways. What it means for politics is you can be afraid, but that's up to you, right? You will face some circumstances in your campaign, before and after your campaign, that should strike some fear in you, right? There will be people who don't like you, who say things about you. There will be constituents who threaten your life, right? Who threaten your family's life. But it's also, so how you approach that is up to you, or how you react to that. But that doesn't mean that that danger is not real. And it's critical in the sense of the struggle. So running for office is an act of sacrifice, right? And you have to sacrifice something to get in. You can't be who you are today, do everything you're doing today, and then run for office and do all those same things. Something will give, and you're going to have to choose what in your life are you going to give up. Is it family time? That's what it was for me. I didn't see my wife and daughter for like 10 months. Right? And that goes back to how much do you want it? How badly do you want it? If you want it, you put in the work and you outwork everyone else. But to outwork everyone else, you have to give something up. And running for office is a struggle of identity, right? From womb to tomb, who are you? It's figuring out what you believe in, what you should stand for, right? And then it's taking that and trying to translate that into a message that connects with the community. That's difficult to do. That takes a lot of time. That will stress you out. You might break down a few times. You might go depressed, right? I went through all of that, but you have to keep your eye on the prize, that it's worth it in the end. When you win on election night, when you see those numbers come in, it will all be worth it. And hopefully you do have a support system, you have a foundation at home, you have something that keeps you grounded, because if you don't and you get into this, it's going to be difficult. So that would be my one piece of advice.
Awesome, awesome stuff. Darryl, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Before we open up the floor to questions, make sure to drop your questions in the Q&A box below. Again, if you have questions for our panelists, please drop them there. And right now we're going to launch a poll. So if you're interested in talking more about your plans to run for office and brainstorming next steps, opt in for a call with Run for Something volunteer. If you're running for office in 2023 and you have applied for an endorsement, the volunteer call will serve as an endorsement interview for you. So I highly think you should, do that if you've already applied. Now, if you're still thinking about running, the volunteer will ask questions that will help you figure out what you need to do next. If you opt in to speak with a volunteer, you'll receive an email from them in the next few weeks to find a time that works for you, for the both of you, to talk for about 30 minutes about your campaign plans. So that asks the basic questions, making sure you have everything aligned and making sure you're ready to go. So again, we have the poll going on. And then while the poll is going on, we're going to ask you to drop questions in the Q&A box. Also, while the poll is going on, I wanted to give some space to Councilman to talk about something he has in the works.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to announce this tonight in front of all of you. But in Colorado, we've talked about a lot of issues here tonight. And in Colorado, there is a significant need for a solution to all of the problems that we've talked about here tonight. And I'm starting a new PAC, and the PAC is called BIPAC. BIPAC, the goal of BIPAC is to unlock the full potential of Black and Brown leadership across Colorado politics. That's state and local government. That is basically going to be focused on funding and strategic guidance. Guidance like what we've tried to give you here tonight, right? Guidance like, here's money, here's literal money, go spend it as you need to. That is a huge gap in Colorado politics right now for people of color, for candidates of color, and we need a great equalizer. We need to level the playing field. We need to have the same access that other people have. So this PAC starting today on the first day of Black History Month, I feel is the solution for us here in Colorado. And I hope to build it up and to get all of you to donate and support this and spread the word. But thank you for giving me the space to announce this.
Shout out to BIPAC. Nice kickoff to Black History Month. And I know a lot of excited candidates that's on this call could use that service. So again, happy that we're building community, growing your networks. Definitely follow up with the councilman after this call, all those who are interested. I am going to toss it back over to Kevin to start the Q&A with the panelists.
Fantastic. And Councilman, congratulations on the launch of BIPAC. Looking forward to being able to support it, and y'all should support it too. So before we leave, make sure y'all grab the information on BIPAC and send them $5, $10, whatever you can to be helpful. So one question that I saw in the chat that has come up quite significantly, and I'm wondering all of your thoughts. I'm just going to open it up to all of you to try to answer this. Is a lot of people are talking about the fact that they're running for office and they're going to have to challenge an incumbent to be able to do it, and the powers that be it the the state party, the local party, whatever that looks like, are not entirely supportive of their runs to start it. Sounds like all of you have had a little bit of experience with that. I'm wondering, how did you navigate that, right? Like, how do you, it's one thing to have the aspiration to run for office. It's another thing to say, the people that are in the position to be the most helpful are telling you it's not your turn yet, wait your time, why don't you run for some other office, right? Why don't you start smaller? How did y'all worked through that? I'm sure each of you has that kind of experience. I just open it up to you to tell us how you worked through that. Don't all jump at once now.
So I used it as fuel, right? That happened several times to me. And it goes back to how much grit do you have? How much do you want it? You're going to face a lot of that. And you have to figure out how to convert that into fuel. And for me, that fueled my whole campaign. That happened to me multiple times. The first time was right in the beginning. I think on day one, the first person I told said, don't run, or let's find something else for you to do. And I basically strategized the entire campaign after that night. Week by week, what I'm gonna do on this week, that week, because that's what they don't expect. They don't expect you to keep going. They expect you to drop out once they tell you that. So you have to find something within you, use that resilience, like we talked about the Black experience, right? Channel all of that and convert the hate into energy. And then you can use the energy to build a movement, right? You connect with the people supersede any established politician. If you can connect with them, take out the middleman, right? Take out the gatekeepers and just connect directly with the people, then you'll never lose.
So I actually applied for the appointment and didn't get selected and had to run for the seat that the community wanted me to have and go in and work with people who said that I wasn't ready for this seat. And so for me, that is, or for Boogie, I would say organize, organize, organize. Connect with this person, connect with the next person, go in and flip the precinct chairs so that you can change the scope of the Democratic Party in your county, the Democratic Party in your district, so that you can get access to that. And that's going to take time, but it really goes back to connecting with the individual people so that you can get in with those precincts.
Another great question I see in the chat. I wonder if I'll start with you, Rep. Every person that's on this call, each of you, right? You all are accomplished young Black people who ran for office, who I'm sure had ideas about things that you wanted to do that would affect specifically Black folks in your districts, right? And each of you also represents people that are not Black in your district. So how did you balance, right, being true to your value set and how you wanted to affect people in your community, and talking about how those issues should matter to people who are not Black in your district, right? And being true to those values in spaces and places where people didn't necessarily have the same lived experience as you, and so they didn't view those issues the same way that you do.
So this is one of the most fortunate things actually about being Black, is that there is a Black experience for every moment and every day of the week. We have this really rich history and tradition of resilience and organizing. But the way that I think about that, I actually, I got this question in like a nasty gram into my legislative email inbox. I was named treasurer of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, and somebody sent me an email which literally read, "Black this, Black that, aren't you supposed to be representing all the people of your district, period," and then they hit send, which, setting that thought process aside, the way that I think about that is that we know when we uplift folks who have historically been the most disenfranchised, who have historically been the most endangered, we are doing so for everybody. What makes life for Black people better? Think about the issues that affect Black people. Every Black person you know has 2 LLCs, right? So you've got small business development right there. Okay, see, that one got a laugh out of Millicent. A lot of folks in our communities are not just struggling to afford housing, but dealing with the loss of generational housing. Where's your mother's house? Where's your grandfather's house? These issues ultimately are universal. And the things that we've been told that are Black issues and not white issues, not to say that they're not Black issues, has a lot to do with how this country frames its understanding of class onto its understanding of race. When we advance, the cause of Black people in almost every arena, everyone else wins too. And I have actually not found, that's like a catchy thing to say. I've actually not found an example where that's not true. And stepping out of this scarcity mindset and being unafraid to say, I am doing this for Black people and for the rest of my district, because that's how we all win. And this is the space that I come from. I actually think that is a winning narrative every time. And every opportunity you get to say, like, look, I know what the Black kids in my community need, because I talk to them and I talk to their parents, and it sounds like that might be similar to what your kids need. So let's talk about that point of connection. That's how I think about it, at least.
Councilman, looks like you want to jump in here.
I 1000% agree with Izzy. It's, when we take care of the needs of the least, we take care of everyone's needs. I talked a little bit about the Black experience. The Black experience is of trauma and resilience. Like, that is the story of America. That's the story of every city in the country. Every resident of every city in the country can connect to that. And that cross-racial solidarity, once we get to the level of cross-racial solidarity, I feel that we can connect with people's true internal need, which is socioeconomic thriving, right? Which is jobs, economy, which is equity for our kids in the classrooms. Everyone can connect to that, can understand the need to help our working class, the need to focus on making sure that police are not beating young, old, Black men generally, right? I think that need for public safety is shared amongst everyone. And I think it's really about changing the narrative, changing the way we talk about it. It's not a Black thing. It impacts Black people the most, right? But the problem is not a Black issue. There are no Black issues. There are issues that impact us the most, but those issues impact you too. That's that connection with residents and bringing them to that point of them knowing that they can trust in us, that we understand that struggle for peace, that struggle for self-agency, that struggle for self-worth, right? These are all the issues that the Black experience we've had to deal with, not by choice, right? They have a choice to deal with that or not, but they are definitely sharing in that pain. So I don't think it's a hard sell once we reframe the struggles that we're going through.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I would just say, look, this week has been a tough week, as Darryl started talking about at the top of the call for Black folks, right? Like, we saw this yet another video of a young Black man being beaten, harassed by law enforcement. And, when I watched that video, I thought about, where I was when I saw the George Floyd video 2 years ago, and asked myself the question of whether you're Black, white, Asian, young, old, poor, gay, straight, whatever it is, would you want to see your kid be on the receiving end of that? Right? That's the sort of place that we all have to get to, right? Is the empathy for each other as human beings, and being able to relate that experience that, frankly, is not a uniquely Black experience, but too many of our brothers and sisters have that story to tell, right? And how we communicate that to folks who don't have that lived experience, I think, is really, really important. So totally right. There is universality in a lot of the Black experience. Let me turn, if I can, to a couple of other questions, because we only have a little bit more time. I saw a couple of questions in the chat about fundraising, so I want to come back to this. At the risk of scaring people away, I'm going to ask each of you, in your most recent race, how much money did you raise? And where did that stack up to where you thought you would be or where you needed to be for your election? Let me start with the rep. How much money did you raise in your most recent race?
Yeah, so this was my first race for state rep. And just for context, the first time I ran for council 5 years earlier, I raised $11,000, and that was the most anybody raised in that race. Closing out the books on the 2022 campaign, we raised about $220,000. So
go ahead, make it rain on them, though. See, this is why I didn't want to. This is why I didn't want to ask this question. I don't want to scare nobody away.
But here, let me jump back in and say, and because this, you talk about the Brinks truck won't pull up, et cetera, et cetera. That's true, but anybody who would act like a Brinks truck, any PAC, any union, big donors, they want to know that you are willing to put in the work. Almost every endorsement interview I did said, how much money have you raised? What's your plan to raise the rest of the money? Because people use that as a litmus test to see, are you a serious candidate? If you're familiar with Emily's List, for example, a lot of people don't know this. Emily is not somebody's name. Emily stands for Early Money is Like Yeast. And the whole goal is to help women candidates, femme candidates, build that early money so that other folks will take them seriously. Make sure that you are seen putting in the work, and some of that extra money will come down. People want to know that they're not throwing good money after bad, or in the example of a union, they're not throwing $5,000 of their members' money into a hole if you're not a serious candidate.
I dropped the mic on that one, man. I don't got nothing else to add there. But I do want to ask you, though, because the money thing, again, this just keeps coming up. And one other sort of related question is about cold calls and making those, like, you don't know the donor. Somebody says, yo, you should really just give this person a call. I think they want to talk to you. How did y'all handle stuff like that? How did you build up the courage to actually pick up the phone and call somebody you never spoken to, don't know, from Adam, and say, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, and here's why I need your support to run for office. Can you give me a couple dollars?
You want anybody to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So my campaign manager commented during the process, during the campaign, that going into government is like a multi-level marketing. And you have to know somebody to know somebody who knows somebody. And so you're cold calling people. I leaned on the shield, absolutely, for some of my funding. For my organization. Somebody asked about Divine Non-Races. So I started there. I called people who were most connected to me, my line sisters, my family. I called my uncle and I said, hey, I need you to call your girlfriend and her girlfriend and his girlfriend. And I need you to make this connection. I called the former mayor. I said, I need your help. And I need you to share your network list. So I'm not making cold calls. I'm getting the initial endorsements, run for something. They have a map of candidates that have run in your area. I called up all those candidates and said, hey, you were endorsed by Run for Something, so was I. I'm running. This is what's happening. And this is why I'm running. I leverage every organization. I got the teachers union endorsement. I said, hey, teachers, the teachers union endorsed me. I need you to donate. And I know you don't have a lot, but I promise it will pay off on the backside. You have to use every leverage. Run for Something ran a campaign. Send thank you notes. No, don't you send thank you notes. Have somebody on your team send thank you notes, right? Because you send a thank you note, then you can send an email follow-up and say, hey, I didn't meet my goal this month and I need some more support. And if you can't give again, I want you to tell your network, here is the language that you should use to tell your network about me, and tell them to sign up for my mailing list so I can have their phone number, they're opting in, and then I'm calling them. That helps make it easier.
I want to say something about fundraising that I think is super, super important because this topic keeps coming up. Fundraising is a form of organizing. It is a form of organizing. What you are doing in those one-on-one conversations is you are actually organizing. It's not the way you think of it, because you think traditionally of organizing as making phone calls to voters, you think of knocking on doors, but you are actually organizing. And every time you have a conversation, you are building a network that can help you to raise the money that you need to. And you got to be a hustler. Let's just keep it a buck, right? Like, not every person that you're going to call is going to be able to give you $1, but they know somebody who has resources that can help you. So sometimes on the phone, when you make the ask and the person is non-committal about whether or not they want to be helpful, you can also make the ask to introduce you to 5 people that they know who can be helpful, right? It's not always about the dollar on the call. Sometimes it's about building the network to be able to bring the money in as well. And I think that's super important too. You know, I'm sure every one of y'all wish that y'all could pick up the phone and call somebody, just write you a $5,000 check so you'd be done with it. But the reality of this thing is, sometimes you're gonna have to do this in bite-sized chunks. And the way that you do it in bite-sized chunks is to build that large network of people who can give a little bit more, who can do a little bit more. And that's how you hack away at the tree. But you're not gonna, Rome wasn't built in a day. And like I said, the Brinks truck ain't coming. So that you to the councilman's point, you got to put in the hours, and you got to view this as a hustle. You got to really work at it. I agree with that completely. A few other questions that came into the chat. Questions about running as a progressive candidate in a red or purple district, and how you handle those things. How do you stay true to your values, but also, reach out to the folks who, and give an olive branch to the folks who maybe don't agree with you on all the issues at the same time. Thoughts about how to do that? Well, start with the councilman. You look like you're working through some stuff.
That's a really good question. So I live in a conservative city, and I was told, you have no chance. You're too progressive. You're black. You're black and you're too progressive, right? So you hear that a lot too. And by the end of it, we had the most votes in the history of the city. So I would say that don't listen to the jargon, the narrative of, oh, you're this, you're that, or you're too this, or you're too that. People are people. Residents real residents, the voters who care about their issues, right? About what they're going through, about making their lives better. They don't care about the partisanship. They don't care how progressive you are, how not progressive you are. They want to know if you are a good decision maker. Can they trust you? So when you're door knocking, by the way, we haven't talked about door knocking. That's the key to it all, okay? Door knocking is the key to success, period. Making money is critical, yes. But next to that, the only thing second to that is knocking doors. So when you're door knocking and you're afraid to say something progressive that because you think that person might not connect to that, learn how to message what you're trying to get at, right? If you say something like, I would love to take away all of your guns, right? Or something as simple as that. Of course, someone who doesn't agree with you will argue with you at the door. But if you say rather, well, I care about the safety of your family, your kids, this neighborhood. I believe in your rights, but I also believe in making sure that others' rights are protected as well, right? You frame your message in a way that connects to the actual issue, not to what you hear a politician might say on TV, right? Make sure it's human. When you're human, they will connect with you no matter what your values are. And once they connect with you, by the way, and this is the magic, so here's the magic juice, right? Once they connect with you, you have their vote 90% of the time, whether they are Trump Republican at the door or they are AOC Democrat at the door. If they connect with you on some level, it could be about family, it could be about anything. They don't get a lot of politicians at their doors. Most politicians avoid the door knocking because they're lazy, right? Don't be lazy. If you're there knocking and you're the only one that came to their door from your race, more than likely you have their vote, even if they argue with you. And that's the key, I think, that most people don't realize. Even if you get a big argument with someone at the door, more than likely they will remember you and you have their vote when they get their ballot because they remember you. So make sure it's a good conversation.
Thank you all. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time, and I'm going to turn this back over to Daryl here in a minute, but I want to reiterate something that Ubi said because door knocking is so important. If you are running for office, the same way you know how much money you have raised in a particular quarter or a particular week or during a particular session of call time, you should know how many doors you knocked, how many constituent conversations you had. The candidates that I have worked with in my lifetime, the candidates that I have endorsed, the candidates that I have supported, that our organization has supported, many of them are more ready to tell me the answer to the voter outreach question than they are the fundraising question. And that tells me a lot about who they are, because you can sit and do call time all you want, but ultimately you cannot win elections unless you go out and talk to people and persuade them to vote for you and turn out for you. It's just that simple. So I totally agree. I think the key to winning elections is to outwork everybody on the doors and on the phones, talking to real people. Some of that can be done through call time, but there's no replacement for wearing out shoe leather, ladies and gentlemen. At the end of the day, you just have got to get out and knock the doors and talk to people. And if you can't do it personally, you got to build a team that can get to all the doors for you. That is the key to the whole thing. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Daryl. Thank you very much. I apologize that we didn't get to all of your questions, but I know folks are in the chat and responding to some of them, and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can before we close out. Daryl, take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you to the panelists. Can we give a virtual round of applause to everyone? It was a great experience. I know a lot of folks appreciated your time, your insight, lived experiences. It was beautiful. And I do want to third what the councilman, what Kevin said. As a run for something staff member, as a person that you potentially work with, or any other run for something staff member, we're going to ask you, how many people did you talk to today? How many voters did you talk to today? How many times was the door slammed in your face today? How many times did you want to give up? You know, your job is simple. It's to get votes. That's the number one priority when you're in a campaign. And the only way you get votes, it's not by yard signs. It's by talking to people. By talking to people. It's about talking to voters, hearing stories, and sharing those lived experiences and sharing your vision. So we're going to wrap up the call. Before we go, I want to remind folks of a few things. If you have feedback for our team, for this event, please, we're going to drop a link in the chat. fill it out, give us feedback. We want to continue to make this better. We want this continue to grow. We want to have the best time that you spend with us. So please provide feedback with the link we dropped in the chat. Everyone on this call will be getting an email from us with the resources from Run for Something to use as you prepare to run for office. So, you know, if you sign on to this call and signed up, we have your email. We'll be sending out our resources for you. Also, save the date. March 7th will be our next See Yourself Running for Women of Color candidates. So if you know any sisters out there, any woman of color that's looking to run for office, and if you like what you had tonight, please tell them to sign up for that next event. If you are a woman of color who wants to run for office and likes what happened, you know, this discussion we have tonight, please sign up for the March 7th event. And if you opt in to speak with the volunteer, look for an email from us in the next few weeks to find a time to schedule that call with you. We need you, and we're here to support you. Thank you, and have a good night, everybody.